house that I've lived in.
Like, where do you put your earned income?
Back into the business.
It's all about growth.
100%. I'm more sold on business than I am even on property, and we sell property because.
Welcome back to another episode on Take a Seat. This is a channel that I've created to foster and inspire the next generation of entrepreneurs. Last week, we had Conversation of Money, Peter Komalafi. He's somebody who was homeless at the age of 18 and now financially free. And so today we've got another new guest. He's somebody who's patterning the real estate agency game. He's been on Channel 4. He's a public speaker. He walks and talks like a guru, you know? And he's making a real dent in the real estate agency game. Welcome on the show, Tyron Ash.
Thanks very much. That's quite an introduction. Very kind of you to have me on as well. I think one of the things that really kind of appealed to me about what you're doing is effectively what you just said, which is inspiring the next generation. I think there are probably some home truths that I'll be able to share with my views on what the next generation should be taking on board if they want to succeed in business. For me, I feel that in the kind of general consensus that's laid out by sort of society now, I don't think hard work is portrayed heavily enough in the route to success. And weirdly, what can happen is there are so many different things that, you know, an 18, 19, 20-year-old can get sidetracked with. It might be that they can follow these Forex signals, or they can do serviced accommodation, or they can deal package, or they can sell real estate, or they can do crypto, or whatever the hell it might be. And the problem is that it's an information overload. Now, when I was growing up, there wasn't like one of those options. If someone talked to me about trading, I'm like, what the hell's trading? Oh, you need to sell real estate. Well, I'm an estate agent, whatever it might be, you know. Now it's information overload. Now that in itself is a challenge.
Yes. I mean, there's a lot of information out there nowadays, and it's getting clouded. There's a lot of people trying to come and be influencers and selling you quick, rich, get schemes, you know.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
People like us, we know there's no, easy path to success. It's all about the mindset and how we sort of, grow and work hard. Tyron, I was just thinking, like, it's amazing. Like, I've got a really good impression with you already because on the last event, you was a public speaker. You had the whole audience in the palm of your hands.
Yeah.
You're quite inspiring. And I messaged a few people, and I messaged you, and you showed me so much love straight away. I was just like, wow, he's responsive.
Yeah.
Giving me his number, and a couple of days later, we're here. Like,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think like, I've always had a kind of belief that there are, like you said, many people, certainly when I was kind of growing up and finding my way in business, I was looking for inspiration. That's what people are looking for, is inspiration. Now, the problem is when you're on a blind run for inspiration, then you can take in information that's incorrect. So you can take information that, you think is going to benefit you. But like you said, it may well be someone selling a get-rich-quick scheme. It may be somebody trying to get you to sign up to a course that's not really going to lead to anything. And unfortunately, if you've got $5,000, or you've asked your parents to lend you $5,000, or you've took a $5,000 loan out, and that's your last $5,000 that you've done for a course, and it goes to nowhere, then you are now minus $5,000 and minus your time, and you still have no direction. So one of the most important things for me is by getting the opportunity to really have a voice about what people should be doing when they are finding their way in business and entrepreneurship. Because if that's something you want to do, then you've got to understand what actually is involved in that. Yeah. Because I think everybody's watched Wolf of Wall Street or another business-related film where you think, God, I'd love to earn $100,000 a month. I could do that. But I don't think you understand that it takes years and years and years of work to become an overnight success. And that is one of the biggest lessons I always learned. And actually, I grew up wanting everything now. That sent me down paths that I shouldn't have gone down because I was chasing quick money instead of actually trying to find a route that worked. But I also had a lack of knowledge. So when you have a lack of knowledge, then what you do is you start guessing. And when you start guessing with no knowledge, you become dangerous. It's like running around with a gun and a blindfold on. It's nuts. It's just you don't know what you're doing. And for me, you've got to, the biggest advice I could give somebody is you've got to pick your route. And then what you've got to do is you've got to apply mastery. Now, what you do is you have two ends of the spectrum, and this is what I think young people need to really, really understand, is that you've got mastery on one side. This is knowledge. This is, let's take, I don't know, college professor or something who like knows a subject like, I don't know, biology or something, and they know everything about biology, and then they stand in front of a class and they teach biology so that people can get a master's degree in biology or whatever it might be. Now that professor isn't the highest earning biologist in the industry. They just have a lot of knowledge and they can teach it. Then what you've got is you've got somebody who, let's take hard work on the other end of the spectrum. What you've got is let's say like a hod carrier or a bricklayer, someone who's literally grafting to put food on the table for their family, right? And I respect anyone that does that, okay? They haven't got much knowledge like Mr. Professor over here, but they have got a bloody high work rate. They get up at 6 a.m, they get the train, they're in work early and they leave work late, and they make sure that they take any extra hours to put food on the table. That's the hard work spectrum. Entrepreneurship and business is smack bang in the middle. And what that means is that you've got to be able to work as hard as that bricklayer. You've got to get up at 5 a.m, 6 a.m, if that means getting in the gym, focusing on your mind, intaking the correct content to set your mind right for success. You've got to do that before the sun's up. And then when the work starts, well, if you don't know what you're talking about, then you haven't got anything to actually offer people. So that means within that time, you've got to become a master at something. So it's the combination of mastery and hard work that allows you to build a business, because you have the knowledge to be able to sell or develop or grow your product, service, or whatever it is that you're doing. But when times are hard and the shit hits the fan, you've got the hard work to get you out of it. And that's what I think people don't understand. There is no quick route. It's actually longer. And the way people get you into work very early is they offer you one of these at a cut price. That's what it is. Oh, you know a lot about mathematics. No worries. We'll offer you 25 grand a year to be a mathematics teacher. Now, there's no point you going to try and become the top earner in Tesla or to build a rivaling company or something like that, because that takes too long. 25 grand a year or 30 grand a year we can give you. Oh, you have knowledge or you work really, really hard. Well, we'll offer you a job as a bricklayer because we'll give you 30 grand a year to do that. And in the meantime, the property developer who also knows how to lay bricks, but has actually got a really prolonged, detailed knowledge of construction, they're the ones building the house. And the bricklayer has to work for that person. That's the difference. And I think that like young people need to understand that it takes time. And if you're impatient, you will lose.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I've never heard anyone put it that way before.
Good.
No, you've inspired me. So I'm the kind of it.
Yeah, but that's it.
Yes,
exactly.
yes,
it's where do
yes.
you position yourself?
Amazing. Tyron, I want to get the man behind the double-breasted suit. I want to see, who's that kid in you? Who's that little kid who's talking to you all the time? Where have you started from? We want to know about what schools did you go? Where did you go college? What was your first job experiences? Who were your first mentors? We want to go right from the start. Where did it start? Where did you grow up? And what was life looking like? Was you always this guy?
No, I think, the biggest thing that I could probably describe growing up is frustration. I think that I grew up in a small town called Newport Pagnell in Milton Keynes. Have a lot of friends there, and is a place that's very close to my heart, but it's also a place that caused me a lot of hurt growing up. For me, I was one of 3 ethnic kids in a 400-person school, and I shot up to 6'2" at around 12, 13 years old. So I was built like a lamppost. I was prime target for bullies. And
I thought you would have been.
No, well, it developed because, frankly, after you've been in numerous fights through no fault of your own, been egged, been targeted, been all these different things, you have 2 choices. do you give up, or do you learn to fight back? And I remembered feeling, so down at around 13 years old, because I just was getting bullied so much, that I asked my dad to buy me a punch bag, and I had these friends. They were friends, but they were nice kids. They weren't going to stick up for me. They were nice kids. They didn't get bother. They were all like English kids, in this school. They don't want to stick up for me when there's older kids getting involved and all that sort of stuff. And I just had to learn to fight. I had no fucking choice. I had to learn how to fight. And I started hitting this bag every single day. I started watching movies like Bruce Lee movies, Rocky movies. These were the movies that took me through my childhood. Watching Rocky movies, watching Bruce Lee movies, watching movies about the underdog, watching movies about people who have beaten the odds, because that's what I had to do, was beat the odds. And I hit this bag so much, hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, till my hands were sore, because I knew the next day I went to school I was going to have to fight. Someone was going to start a fight with me. And then what would happen is, if I beat that kid up, their mate would come up. And if I beat that kid up, their older brother would come. And I was having fights with 17-year-olds at 13, 14 years old, because I had no choice. So my childhood it started off with me being probably the nicest kid that's ever landed on this earth, to developing a side of my personality that I had to develop. And that turned me into learning to fight for myself and for my survival, effectively, because that's what it felt like.
Did you feel that because people picking on you, did you question if you was good enough, and did you feel like you always had to prove yourself?
Yes, I think that the big question that stayed in my mind for a long time was, why me? Why am I getting this treatment? I don't deserve this. And that went on and on and on and on. And it got to a point where it was like, I went from being this unbelievably nice person to being the angriest person that's ever, because what happened was, and I'll never forget it, is I remember all these kids like walking down the street, and I thought, who's this crowd for? And I'm there, I'm 13, 14, I'm minding my own business. And that crowd was for me. Yeah. There was someone coming to, what it's like in school, fight and all this. And suddenly, oh yeah, so-and-so's, and he was like one of the hardest kids in school and all this sort of stuff. And I'd prepared for this day, because I thought, right, I've been teaching myself behind closed doors, and obviously I'm not going to get into it, but I gave a pretty good account of myself. And suddenly people were like, okay, this guy can handle himself. And suddenly the respect started coming. Right. So that automatically created a link between me being able to physically handle myself and me getting respect. Because I weren't getting it from being nice, and I wasn't getting it from making friends. So that was the only way I was getting it. And it wasn't the way I wanted it either, but it was the way it had to go. And what happened was, the anger developed through school. But I was always a clever kid. I was getting A's in my grades. I speak well. I had A's in English language, A's in English literature. I had an A in history. I was an extremely intelligent kid, certainly not in like the mathematical side, but in the linguistical side. I love vocabulary. I love expressing myself through speech, through descriptive language. That's where my strengths are. That's why I was good at sales. That's why I was good at relationship building. And that has always been my strengths. And of course, so I've got this person who loves reading books and loves the English language. And then as soon as I close the book, I've got to go and beat someone up to get home from school. It's nuts. And that was what was torn left and right with me growing up. And as it got into my 20s, that took over, because then you start going out with your friends, you start going to nightclubs, and suddenly I had to carry on this facade. I had to carry on this image. Okay, I'm going to get in a fight in this nightclub to show everyone that I'm there.
Right. You felt you had to do that.
Yeah, to show everyone that I was there. Did someone look at me wrong? I'll start a fight. I was that guy. I was an arsehole. I turned into a real arsehole. And, and it was all a lie. It was never me. And of course, that landed me into crowds that were also like that. So suddenly oh, he's throwing his weight around a bit. Oh, this guy throws his weight around a bit. Let's become fucking mates. So suddenly we're going to the gym together. Suddenly we start getting involved in other things together. All right, well, naturally, I wanted to make money. So you start dealing drugs, don't you? That's what you do because it goes with the image. You know, people fear you. You're a drug dealer. So all of that sort of stuff started unfolding through into my early 20s. But weirdly, I spent 3 or 4 years as an estate agent. My first job, I didn't go through into university because I took a job as an estate agent.
Right,
because
so your first experience of work was the estate agency?
Yes.
Okay, and what age was that?
16. I was a Saturday boy, and I was good. And I took on as a sales negotiator in Bletchley High Street. My first house I ever sold was a £27,500 shared ownership. I got paid £45 commission.
Wow.
And
was it a lot of money when you're 16?
No.
It still didn't feel like it.
No. But my God, I felt proud.
Yeah.
Like I really, really felt proud. They were some of the happiest memories of my life because I couldn't wait to get out of school. School hurt me a lot. School was the worst memories of my life. It was I hated every minute of it. And when the thought of taking that onto university was my worst nightmare.
So it was always just a mindset of just going to go.
I wanted to get out. I didn't want to speak. I remember being in sixth form for the last few months, and I would sit on my own. And I was so angry, and I was so pent up that even people who wanted to talk to me, I'd say, "Don't fucking talk to me. Leave me alone." I would sit on my own like some sort of fucking psycho. I'd lost it.
Yeah.
Because I was that angry. Yeah.
Who were some of your mentors up to the age of 16? So who was guiding you? Who was your older brother, your father at the time, or your older friends? Or
my dad was always my hero, the person that I looked up to, and I still always look up to him. I think what my dad did for me and my brother was absolutely staggering and absolutely phenomenal. My parents split up when we were kind of, I was about 12. We still had a good relationship with my mum and everything, but my dad was a real role model and taught us a lot, made us stand up for ourselves, made us play football, get into teams, be competitive, want to win. He taught us some really, really great, valuable lessons. But my dad also had a different route in kind of, he's built a successful, portfolio of properties and all that sort of stuff. Okay. But my dad was someone who they come from a different era. They do. It's not anything different apart from he had his job. He was an engineer. He worked his way up. He got enough money, built a property portfolio, and he's successful well within his own right. He's built a nice house for himself, and I love him and respect him for everything he's done. And he's taught me and my brother a lot. He didn't run a multi-million-pound real estate business, and I always wanted to run my own estate agency. And you couldn't get enough money together even in that job. There just wasn't enough money for you to go and do it. So they held you there quite comfortably. But mentors-wise, my dad, certainly growing up, helped me get through some difficult times. And my mum especially as well, certainly later on as well. Apart from that, there was no one. Because I didn't look up to anyone because no one was giving me the help or advice that I needed. So I just went and found it, and I found it in very weird ways. Then I got to a estate agency, and at 21 years old, a chap called Russell Humphrey, he was basically I went for a stage with it where I was really, really good, and then my motivation dropped. And I didn't want to go to work, and I think I was probably a bit depressed. I don't know what I wanted to do. The money was shit. I'd worked in there for a few years, and I was like, I'm still not where I want to be. I'm not earning much money, blah, blah, blah. And he pulled me into the back office, and he kind of just said, look, do you want to do this job or not? Like, because I'm about to get rid of you. And I was like, wow, no one's ever actually said that to me, because I used to just put up with my shit. And I was like, well, I want to earn money. Like, I want a decent car. I want to do, why I'm not getting any of this. Why should I? Like, that was my attitude. And he said, well, what car do you want? And I said, well, I want like the new Audi. This is when the Audi facelift happened. This is, it gets showing my age now, but like it's with the kind of silver rim around the badge, and it was all modern, and the shape changed and everything. And they were out, and they were like 35 grand cars, those Audi A3s. And he said, look, I picked the exact model out, and he said, if you do these figures, by in the next 3 or 4 months, can't remember how long he gave me, but it was a marker. I said, I promise you now I'll get you that car through the company.
Wow.
And I went, fuck, suddenly my motivation went through the roof. I was driving a Fiat Punto at the time.
Okay.
Purple.
I remember them ones.
So people already thought I was a hairdresser. And I smashed my target, and I was the number one negotiator for like 2-3 years running. I was untouchable, and I was driving this car around, and I literally thought I was invincible. So he was one of my best mentors growing up, and I'm still in close communication with him at the moment, and he's someone that I trust implicitly as well. But apart from that, I went searching for mentorship after I spent my 2 years in prison. I did
So you actually went to prison?
Yeah. I got
for the drug dealing.
I got convicted for drug dealing in 2015.
Wow.
Intent to supply Class A. Listen, there's right and wrong. I was wrong, but I was certainly no Pablo Escobar. It was I got caught with some. I was dealing to sort of friends and people to make extra money. I shouldn't have been doing it, and I regret it massively. But what I don't regret is the lessons it taught me in life, because if I say what was probably the biggest thing I took away from it, it was that people who do these things need to take themselves out of the equation and understand just how much hurt and pain it causes the people that are around them. Because I had little incidents in there, I got through. It's 2 years, a long time, but nothing I couldn't handle. But one of the things that hit me the most was, being in a visiting hall and seeing your mum and your dad breaking down in tears because you've destroyed the family. That's something that's an image that I just can't get out of my head even to today. Seeing it broke me. And I was crying for hours in my cell after, because I just realised what I'd done. I knew I'd done bad, but, I've seen my dad cry twice in his life. One was burying his sister, and the other time was me in a fucking visiting hall. You don't do that to people you love. And that was one of the biggest lessons I took from it. And I was going along, funny enough, like I said, I took my dad's advice, and he said to me, you need to get a proper job. So he said, my brother was a plumber, so he said, you need to be an electrician. So I'm a qualified electrician. Okay. Not a good one. And so I listened to him. I come out, I started doing electrical work, someone else for like 30 quid a day to learn the industry. Let me tell you something, I fucking hate that job. If anyone does that, fair play to you. I can't do it.
Like labourers?
Do you know what it is? It's I just had no interest in it whatsoever. And I remember, and I'm also, listen, I'm a big guy, but I'm a fucking wimp when it comes to cold weather and stuff like that. So I was on like a new build site. I got this job on a new build site, and I was having to fit these outside lights in. And my fingers, everyone's working as normal there, because they're like proper real men, aren't they? They're out there, they're working, they're grafting. And I'm there going, right, I've got to screw these outside lights in. But my fingers were so cold, I couldn't hold the screws, and I kept dropping them down the cracks in the pavement. And I think I must have cost them 5 or 6 outside lights because I was losing the screws. And in the end, I just sat in my van, and I had my hands next to the heater, and the site manager was like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm too cold to work. And I just drove off the site. I was terrible. I was actually the worst electrician going. So it was only when Russell, the guy I mentioned earlier, he then contacted me and said, would you get back into property again? I said, no, there's not enough money in it, blah, blah, blah. In a nutshell, he introduced me to another company in North London. This was selling some seriously big houses. And suddenly I found my love for luxury property. That took me down a bit of a rabbit hole, because I then realised that it's not just about listing luxury property. It's not just going to sell. You've got to have a proper strategy, a proper process. And I worked under a guy called Sean Newman, who was, he's exceptional at what he does. And he taught me a lot as well. and he taught me certainly the fundamentals of selling luxury property. And then, of course, that put me on a good start. But I started delving even deeper into it because I thought, I know how good I can be at this. That's the thing. It was like, when you find your niche, you find your calling. And I got so obsessed with it, so obsessed. Every podcast I was listening to, every $1 Million Listing episode, this is when that had just come out, I was watching. Every YouTube by Ryan Serhant or Josh Altman, I was watching over and over again. And then what I did is I started understanding real estate, right down to like how to prospect effectively, how to hold a market appraisal meeting, how to market a property far more effectively than your competition, how to drive more buyers in, how to negotiate the highest price for the owner. All these things I was spending hours and hours and hours and hours learning. Nothing else mattered apart from, I got so obsessed with it. It was like from the minute my eyes shut, were closing, I would have a podcast or a video, or I'd be reading a book or consuming some content on becoming the most knowledgeable person on this subject, which is what we went back to our initial thing about mastery. So I started really falling in love with this, because what was happening was I was taking the stuff I was learning, I was going into a meeting, bang, 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 close, bang, 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 sale, bang, 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 exchange. And I started doing some good numbers. And I was thinking, I know what I'm fucking doing here. And then I started expanding. But I also found a real love and understanding, because, in all that knowledge and all that learning, well, the subject of social media comes up. So suddenly, what are Ryan Serhant, what are Josh Altman, what are all these massive real estate brokers and agents doing in the world that they all have in common? Hard work's one, but personal brand and personal marketing is the other, and that is in social media. Well, no one's doing it in the UK, so I thought, right, well, that's mine. I'm going to take that now, and I started doing property videos and property tours before anyone else did them.
When did you start that?
Probably, God, now we're talking 2017.
Wow, so
Yeah.
ahead of the game.
Yeah. Oh, people were laughing at me. I was getting abuse for it. Have you seen this Wally doing this video? I still get a bit of abuse, but but like it was unheard of, it was unseen, but I loved it, and I started growing my following. I started getting more impactful in the industry, and that's when it really started picking up speed. But it was only because the place where I was working, they were effectively limited by the fact that they had franchises for postcodes. So if you started operating outside of that postcode, you go into someone else's franchise territory. That didn't really work for me, because social media, you can get business everywhere. So if I have a listing in Chelsea and I'm 40 minutes away, let me go and drive the fucking 40 minutes and do it. I'm not handing it over to your other office who doesn't even know the person. That's my listing. So that started causing loads of conflict. I had head office on the phone every other day, and I just had to leave. I had no choice. And it was only then that I realised that as I was searching and flirting with different companies, that what I wanted didn't actually exist. And that's where Tyron Ash Real Estate came from, because I created it for myself. I had no intention of running a business, no intention. But I realised what I wanted to satisfy my social media growth, my ability, my earning potential, my business capabilities, there was nothing. So I had to create it.
Solving a problem.
I literally solved my own problem. That was all it was. But that came from pushing myself to my limits. Because if I retracted in any of those areas, I would never have had to found that solution, because I wasn't growing. So if I just limited myself to that little postcode and I didn't really do much social media, there would have been no need for Tyron Ash Real Estate. It wasn't solving a problem. Because I grew and grew and grew, and I was aggressively getting better and better and better at this subject, this job, this profession, suddenly the growth, which closely aligns with the success, needed a solution. And when I went out to the market looking for the solution, it didn't exist. And that's where it come from.
So important question here, like you was employed at this stage and then you wanted to solve this problem. When was the right time to go from employed into self-employed? How did you transition that? And how did you sort of de-risk it in terms of going from income and no income? Because it can be really hard starting a business. Did you have to come up with some savings plans, give yourself a backbone?
It's a very good question, because I wish I could give you a romantic answer, but the reality is I told my landlord he's not getting his rent for 3 months, and I negotiated a time for, which I know they're not doing now, but with the property portals, with the website developers, I'd taught myself some very valuable negotiating skills. Well, I probably had about 12 grand in my bank. Imagine starting a business with 12 grand on this scale. And all I did was buy myself time. That's all I did. So all I said was, I need 3 months free for everything. So, because CRM systems were looking for new business. So I said, I'll pay you, but I'll go into contract with you, but I need 3 months. Rightmove, I need 3 months. You need to give me 3 months. Zoopla, I need 3 months. All of these places, which I know they won't do it now, or if they do, I don't know. But like, I just needed time. I had to say to the landlord at the time, I can't pay you rent for 3 months. But the reason I'm calling you to tell you is because I will pay you. 6 weeks later or whatever, I paid him. But I had a lot of deals I'd put together, and I knew I was going to do it. So
do you work good under pressure?
I only work under pressure. That's why I kind of expand and expand and expand. I need to feel pressure all the time. I need to feel like someone's breathing down my neck, making sure that I'm performing, because I get so scared of the comfort zone. I get so scared of falling into mediocrity. I had no money for so long. I used to get jealous when people were successful. I used to have friends and they'd be driving nicer cars than me, and I'd be bitter. And I'd say, oh, he's probably doing fraud. He's probably doing this. He's probably doing that. That's what you do. You talk shit about people because they're where you want to be. I never want to feel like that again. And growth, I think, is extremely healthy. I believe that your mind and your ability has two states. It has growth and it has retraction. It doesn't have anything in between. You're either growing or you're dying. It's like a plant.
Fight or flight.
Yeah, there's up or there's down. It's not horizontal. It doesn't stay where it is. A plant is either growing or it's dying. And that is the same with your ability with business, with you growing as a person. So I always have to be under pressure. That was the ultimate pressure, but I knew it was going to happen. I knew it was going to work. And the weird thing was that was phase one, and I thought I'd made it when I started banking the money. And then you realise, actually, am I going to do this for my whole life? I've just got over that task. What else am I capable of?
When did you do your first sale under Tyron Ash?
Oh, I did it within the first week.
Oh wow!
Yeah, first week. It's funny when
How much was it?
900 grand. So I charged 2% about 18 grand. So I was off the mark, paid everyone I had to pay.
Brilliant.
And and then I was away. But it was not everyone could do it. Like, I'm not saying to people go and rip your landlord off. I'm not saying like do it. I'm not saying that, but that's because I was so sure of my ability.
Your mindset.
The weird thing was, it was like, there was no plan B. It had to work. But funny enough, as it started getting to that, I started then analysing, because the funny thing was, I tied up the deal in around January of 2020, and for anyone that's got a short memory will know that in March was when the pandemic started.
Yes.
So going back to the fucking schoolboy who used to look in the mirror and say, why always me? Yeah. I was thinking, why me? I've just put everything into this business. How is a pandemic starting? Yeah. You've got to be fucking kidding me. And I've got my dad on the phone. He's going, oh, God, you gave it a good go. Like, don't beat yourself up about it. And I'm like, no, this is bullshit. I start a business, there's a pandemic. It's bullshit. And I'm fucking kicking and screaming. I'm angry. I'm back to that guy at school again. If anyone's read The Chimp Paradox, It's a great book. I highly recommend it. And everyone's got this chimp in a cage. Well, my chimp was fucking causing mayhem that day because I just lost the plot and suddenly no one's allowed to go to their offices. Industries have shut down. Everyone's on, furlough? It was called furlough, and they're getting sent 600 quid a month or whatever the fuck it was. And I thought, this can't be real. And then I remember Boris Johnson giving an announcement about the housing market, and I was waiting. I never watched TV and I never watched the news, but that was the one day I fucking watched it. What's happening with the housing market? And he said the housing market is still open. The property market is still open. Yeah. So I was like, okay, that's good news, I think. I think that's good news. We can still do. So suddenly solicitors were still working from home and it was all a bit slower, but things were moving. And then another announcement was that people were not allowed to work in their offices. So I was like, hold on a minute. All our competition work in offices. So I was like, so basically, estate agents aren't allowed to go to work. The housing market's still open. It's fucking hunting season now, isn't it? So I was like, right, well, let's get to work. So I said to everyone, they said, well, we can't door knock. I said, yes, you can. I said, go and door knock. Put a mask on, put some rubber gloves on, put a fucking hazmat suit on if you have to. I don't give a shit. Go and fucking door knock. I'm door knocking. Let's go and do it. Yeah, you go, oh my God, it's a pandemic. What are you doing? I said, well, I haven't got fucking a coronavirus, but the housing market's still open. So I'm standing back, 2 meters or something? You had to stand away. I'm standing, I said, stand back, stand at the bottom of the drive, do all of that, play the game. And we were listing. So we're still selling houses. Your agents aren't even allowed in the office. They didn't have the backup structure for people to work from home either. So we were literally taking listings off agents by the dozen every week and selling them. And we had solicitors working on the stuff and we were selling. And we were selling during a pandemic. And it was nuts. And I just thought to myself, I remember when we did like a month and I think we did about 80, 90 grand in a month. And that was fucking big numbers for me then. And I was like, I remember saying, and I was staying at my friend's house at the time because I'd left the apartment I was in because I wanted to live with someone because I was on my own. And it was like my mate, he just broke up with his girlfriend. So he said, oh, why don't you come and live in my house? At least we got a bit of fucking company. Do you know what I mean? So I remember doing that month when I was sat with him. And I remember saying, how the fuck have I pulled that out of the bag? How? How? And it's because my brain now is built differently. I used to be the kid that would say, why me? Why has it happened to me? Victim mentality. Now, whenever there's a problem thrown at me, I just say, what's the solution? How do I find the solution? And that I'm so good at finding solutions to everything. And I found that was my first real taste of how do you find a solution to this? Because you could easily have been blinded by the news. They say the housing market's on, yeah, but it's a pandemic. You ignore the actual fact that the housing market's still going. And we were doing open houses and making people go in groups of 2 and sending one up and one. You solve the problem. And they go, you can't do that. Well, yes, you can. You stand there, you stand there, you stand there. You two come through, go back out, you two come through. You could do it. Yeah. You've got to fucking think, use your brain. Yeah. You've given a problem, what's the solution? So we grew massively through the pandemic. And we also, imagine our recruitment. Imagine all the unemployed salespeople and estate agents sitting down bored, wanting to earn some money. Yeah. And us going, well, guess what? When you actually become a self-employed luxury real estate agent selling luxury property that you can sell now for the next 6 months, while they tell you you're only allowed 30 minutes of exercise every day, you can actually go out and do viewings. You can actually go out and work. You can drive around. You can tell them you're working as an estate agent, whatever. And you're not going to be breaking the law. And you can earn 10 grand or 20 grand per sale. What would you rather do? And we were recruiting so fast through this because people were like, this is the answer. Run your own business in property, not affected by the pandemic, crack on. And we recruited a lot of people. We grew aggressively. And, the rest, as they say, is history. But that was where that was the starting process of it. And people think, oh, this was just a flash in the pan. I don't think people understand what they're up against when they're with me. I don't think they understand. I think they think, if they think I was just this loud guy on social media, everything I've ever done has been done for a reason. Everything I've ever said, whether it was on the television show, whether it was on a podcast or a video or whatever, has been calculated. It's been done to have the desired effect. I knew that if I was going to crack a market in an industry where we're not wanted, then the only way you're going to get people to talk about you is if they fucking hate you. Because they're not going to talk about me, about how good I am. I could be the best real estate agent in the world, but I am not wanted in the market. So if I'm not wanted, they are not going to be promoting me anytime soon. But if they fucking hate me and I'm doing business, then they're going to talk about me. And so the promotion that weirdly happened the most in the business is through word of mouth, but not the word of mouth that you think it is. It's through estate agents sat in offices going, have you seen this dickhead on Mega Mansion Hunters slagging off estate agents, saying that we're all sat in here chained to our desks, blah, blah, blah. Well, you fucking are. And we're earning all this money and living life and, selling beautiful houses and doing everything you thought you could aspire to do. And we're doing it in a far quicker time span than you're doing it. Who's the winner here? And that, fortunately, sparked insecurities within people in the industry. I'm designed to spark those insecurities in people, because if you're sat there, you're an estate agent on 25, 30 grand a year working 50 hours or 60 hours a week, you better have a fucking good look at yourself in the mirror and think, is this my existence for the next 10 years? Because there's far more out there. And, that is how it all started. And of course, we grew and blew up on social media.
And how quick did that happen? So you've opened it, you've done, 19,000 in sales in the first sort of month. 90,000. Yeah. It was
I think month 5 and month 6 were huge, and that was when I realised we were onto something. But then what happens with these things is business is designed to test you. Business is one of the cruelest, most exciting, challenging games out there, because it's designed to throw problems at you. And when you grow, everyone goes, I want to run a big business. Anyone who runs a large corporation or a big business, or anyone who's grown a business, I respect and will always take my hat off to. And the reason being is I know what the stresses are that come with it. That could be from a personnel point of view. That could be from a legality point of view. That could be from a profit point of view, a costing point of view. It could be from all these different aspects. Every single one of them throws challenges at you that you have to find solutions at. And, most people, when problems get thrown at them, they fold. It's our natural human reaction. Run for the fucking hills. Yeah. There's a saber-toothed tiger chasing after us. Do you know what I mean? That's our reaction.
Yes. Something I'm sort of learning and observing also is the fact that how you deal with pain. Some people can't handle pain and they just turn the other direction. And some people saying, well, I'm going to use it as motivation.
Yeah.
In my childhood also, I was bullied very heavily. Grew up in East London.
Yeah.
There was gangs there.
Yeah.
Every day, my nickname was Fat Boy.
Right.
I had a belly hanging over my belt. My mum would just overfeed me.
Mums do, don't they?
I was 1 of 5 children, and I was like the boy. So they would always be. I was like a mini king at home.
Yeah.
Come on, eat this, and let him have it first or something. I was a little nurtured, but then I took that mindset into school, but I wasn't that guy in school. I was Fat Boy. Oh, he's fat. Shut up. Don't listen. Yeah. And because I was always nurtured at home, and I could say anything, I'd probably do the same thing at school, but I didn't even realize I was doing it.
Yeah.
And they're like, "What did he just say?" Like, boom, hit him, boom.
Yeah.
And I couldn't understand it. So I'd always be fighting every single day.
Yeah.
And I always used to go home and say, why me?
Yeah.
And I'll be walking home and I'd see a gang waiting for me.
Wow.
And there's like 4 or 5 of you jumping. I go to the toilet, somebody spit in the back of my head, turn around, black eye, boom, straight.
Wow.
And I'm fighting for my life all the time. Do you know what I mean?
Nuts.
And every day was like that.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I'd go and tell my dad, and my dad would say the opposite and go, if you come home getting beaten up tomorrow, I'm gonna beat you up. Sort of.
Right,
He was more like alpha male.
Good, yeah.
70s, 80s, all
Yeah,
gay
that's
East,
it, yeah.
one of them men. And so he was just
Yeah.
like, Dad, can you just come with me, Mum? So I know you're the tough guy. Like,
Yeah.
Shop. And
Yeah.
no messes with you. No, you got to sort it out.
Wow.
You got to sort it out yourself. I even remember one time I went to swimming, and somebody just said, I swore at his mum. He said, "Oh, Sean swear at your mum," and he goes, "I'm waiting for you outside." And we went to swimming this day, and as we were gonna come out, there was a whole two years we're waiting for.
Wow.
It was about 60, 70 people.
Must be unbelievable.
And it's
yeah.
that thing you were mentioning earlier, like who are all these people for?
It's for
And
you.
one of my friends went, "Look, bro, I can't really help you, but I just wouldn't wear your tie right now. Just take the tie off because you just don't know what's gonna happen." And we got pushed under these flats, and it's broken.
Yeah,
glass
yeah,
and
yeah,
everything.
yeah.
Next minute, boof, I'm right in the middle, and everyone's like, shoo,
No.
back, and I'm looking around, and my heart's in my
Yeah,
mouth,
yeah.
and he just walloped me so hard. I saw 3 of him in front
Wow.
of me, and I thought, fight or flight.
Yeah.
You're not gonna cry in front of 60, 70
No,
people.
no.
So I fought this geezer, boom, headlock, everything. What happened. But at the end of it, all bloody and all of that, and then they hold you up like you're a trophy,
Yeah.
and you're like, I feel disgusting right now.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
had to hit somebody, cause all of this, and now you
And that's
give
how
me.
that's how you get in the respect.
You get
It's
in
horrible.
respect. It was horrible, but growing up like that, I use that as motivation. That
Yeah.
I'm never gonna be that shitty little quiet boy in the corner.
No, you can't.
Yeah, I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna become something and become someone.
Yeah.
And use it as motivation.
You have
instead
to.
of, because then you're just gonna get kicked to the curb. You accept what your environment is.
Oh, 100%. And do you know what? I really appreciate you sharing that story, because it's it's an amazing story. And it's a story that obviously I can relate to, but I think it's what people don't understand is that your growth only comes from stressful situations. It's and of course, you don't have to go out looking for fights. Unfortunately, we had these situations sprung upon us. But if you are somebody who doesn't have those situations, you've got to put yourself and your mind in situations that they have to overcome. So it could be something, for example, I remember when I was going to the gym, right? And I would go to the gym before I started really getting a bit more serious about it. And I would never want to go, I'd never want to go on the Stairmaster, because the hardest machine, and it used to, my heart be smashing out my chest, I couldn't breathe properly, and all this. Now every time I go, I do 20 minutes because it's hard, because I need to do it, because I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
That's why I do it.
That's what you need to do.
Now when I get up in the morning, I don't put my alarm on snooze, because I know the minute I've hit snooze, I've lost. I get up and I go. So I do things that are painful for myself short term, because I know every time I do something that I don't want to do, then the benefit is long term. That's the reality. And some of the things that I've had to learn, some of the lessons I've had to learn, whether that might be doing something stupid and ending up in prison, or whether that's having to fight your way out of a situation, the reality is, good, bad or ugly, there was serious growth that was achieved out of that. And I think that certainly for people who are kind of budding entrepreneurs, people who want to get ahead in life, start with things that you don't want to do. I heard a Navy SEAL guy on a video on YouTube, and he said, start every day by making your bed in the morning. That's a good place to start. Yeah. I think it's a good place to start, because you don't want to do it. It's just these little things, I have to say I'm not the best at making my bed in the morning, but that's because I'm up and I'm in the gym at 6. Yeah. So maybe just get up, make your bed. Also, give yourself a challenge. Do something you don't want to do. So, if you're not going to the gym, or if you're going to the gym at 4:00 in the afternoon, say, do you know what? For the next week, I'm going to go at 6 a.m. I'm going to go at 6 a.m. regardless. If I have to go to bed at 10, then I'll be up at 6. Do it. Don't watch Netflix till 1 in the morning, because that's not productive. And it's the equivalent of putting junk food into your brain. And with all the, I'm not going to get into it, but all the blue lights, the lights that, that late at night, all that sort of stuff, it's really bad for your system. You need to be in bed early, and you need to be up early. Beat the sun, get in there, get the blood pumping around your brain, pumping around your body, and then attack it. And then what you'll find is as you get out, write your goals down. I get up every morning, and I think my brother races me to get up. We live in the same apartment, but I think he races me to get up. But I get up, and every morning he's got his head in his book with his pen, and he's writing down his goals for the day. And I think it's brilliant.
Make the invisible visible.
Oh, I'm telling you. And I think that when you start actually taking control of these measures, then amazing things can happen. And I think that people need to understand that if you want to go to the top, and this is my own advice as well, I don't consider myself at the top, but I want to get there, is, you've got to be disciplined. One of the biggest lessons I'd like people to take from this is that, yes, you've got to go through the other end of struggle, but there's loads of people who struggle in life and they also don't get further in life, and that's because they don't use that process to then put into a positive process to get further. If you want to get ahead in life, then you've got to be disciplined. So what's discipline? Well, at 19, 20, 22, 25, even 30 years old, some of the hardest disciplines you've got to do could be socially. It could be the fact that the only way you get to see your friends is if you go to the pub on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday and drink beer and, whatever. Well, unfortunately, if you want to make it in life, that's very, very counterproductive. Now, networking's slightly different, but you've got to look at a situation. You've got to say, is that situation going to benefit me, and can I benefit that situation? So if someone offers you an opportunity to meet someone who could help you get further in your career, then that might be a good use of your evening. But that doesn't mean going to get shit-faced at the Dog and Duck until 1 o'clock in the morning for no reason, playing on the fruit machine. That's not productive. Get yourself to bed early and get up at 6 a.m. Try it for a month. Discipline is what really comes with it, because then you are able to make executive decisions. If you make executive decisions on your life, then you can make executive decisions in business. If you are slapdash with your decisions on your own life, how the hell are you going to run a business? You can't.
What keeps you motivated?
I think
what motivates you every 6 a.m. in the morning? Like, what's that thing now that's stopping you from? Because we all have bad days, We all have days that it was like, oh, why didn't that solicitor let it go through? Why didn't we complete? Who's messed what up, or something that you're not in control of in your team, and how the hell did that happen? What keeps you motivated and keeps pushing you?